Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are back. We are back, baby. We are back like we never left. You know what I mean? So we'll give a few people some time to get into this room for this legendary show we're about to have tonight. But before I bring on my guests, I want to give a young man his flowers. May he rest in peace. Our brother Keno Rochford. Tonight's show will be dedicated to Keno and everything that he stood for, all the people that he always brought together, and the love that the city is showing. We are hurting right now because of this loss. Hopefully, this will bring us together, not split us apart. He would want that. He would want for us to stick together. My only words are rest in heaven and justice for Keno. Take a moment of silence. This is my brother right here. Look at that smile. And he was a Fairleigh Dickinson Knight. So we definitely want to shout that out. Play ball, Massillon High School, played at Fairleigh Dickinson University, played pro ball overseas, and came back to his neighborhood and was an integral part of bringing back Dunker's Delight. So rest in heaven, Keno. We love you. Big whistle for Keno. We're saying that. Welcome to Basketball Heads Live. I am your host, Glenn Poole Harding. And tonight, we have a very, very, very special guest. This basketball head is the New York City legendary head coach by ways of St. Raymond High School in the Bronx. For 16 seasons, he led St. Ray's to 2 state championships and 4 city championships. This basketball head was named New York City and New York State Coach of the Year several times over. This basketball head produced over 70 Division I players. I don't think y'all heard it. 70 Division I players, plus more, including 3 McDonald All-Americans in Kareem Reed, Majestic Mac, and Julius Hodge. The Ravens were consistently ranked in the top 25 high schools in the nation. In addition, this basketball head was named director of the prestigious ABCD basketball camp, and it has been head coach for numerous prestige games such as the Dapper Dan, Magic Round Ball Classic, Jordan Game, and McDonald All-American Game. This basketball head did move to the collegiate level where he served as associate head coach at DePaul University for 4 years, as well as 3 seasons as assistant coach at the University of Richmond. This basketball head moved to Chicago, okay, and continue his winning ways at St. Rita High School, winning 7 Chicago Catholic League championships. Which y'all should know by now, our next guest knows how to win and win big. Now, this basketball head spent some time as a prep school head coach at Gulliver Prep in Miami before coming back to Chicago. Nowadays, you can catch him on the sidelines at De La Salle Institute in Chicago, bringing a wealth of experience from both the collegiate and high school levels. So, without further ado, help me welcome to the show, New York City legendary head coach, Gary DeCesare.
Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Yeah. You have just stepped into the world of chaos. Where everybody goes hard. Come on. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Or go home. Never back down. You gotta hold your own. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. East Coast. Go hard. West Coast. Go hard. Midwest. Go hard. Dirty. Hurry up, everybody. Get online, buy your tickets, cause the game about to start.
Coach.
How you doing, Glenn? Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. This is an honor. This is definitely an honor, man. Hearing your name ring bells throughout the years in New York City, you put it down unlike no other, and you left a legacy that's still talked about in the city to this day. So, salute to you.
Appreciate it. Couldn't do it without all the players. The players make everything. You know that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But then, I always have this argument with people. I gotta bring up Coach Hartstein, and I always tell people, yeah, we have some great players, but we also had a great coach, right? And players can't do it. You can have, a lot of great players that still don't do it. I could name a lot of coaches who had a lot of great players who never did what you did. So,
well, I appreciate that. It's a good mix when the players and the coaches are on the same page.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome when the plan comes together.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So, who introduced you to the game, Coach?
Well, I was interesting childhood. I was coaching my grammar school basketball when I was going to college. So I was coaching grammar school basketball at St. Helena's Grammar School in the Bronx. I was going to St. Raymond's High School while I was doing that. I was reffing basketball and reffing CYO at the time. And I went to college. I could have went to a Division II scholarship, but I knew I wanted to get into coaching. So when I graduated from St. Raymond's, I went to Iona College, and I came back and I was an assistant to my high school coach, Bob Delabovi, over at St. Raymond's. And, I was there 4 years while I was going to college. I was still coaching grade school. I was, still coaching assistant in high school, and I was going to college all at the same time. And Coach Delabovi got the job at Manhattan College in 4 years. And luckily I was there and at St. Raymond's, and they hired me. And, everybody says when I got the job, I was 21 years old and, the youngest coach in the country, but who knows that, right? I just go along with it. Sure. No problem.
Well, you started out young, Coach. You started out coaching young, you're refereeing. So, of course, the officials couldn't get anything over you because, my mentor, Coach Ray Haskins, always says some of the best coaches are referees as well. Do you believe that?
Yes, absolutely. No doubt about it. If I knew, who knew what path to take there? You go reffing. Now these guys are making, oh my God, yes. They're making so much money now. And I remember guys in our league like Eddie Corbett and, coached our league. And, I think Eddie's done 3 or 4 Final Fours. So I guess it's a great second job for people if you wanted to be a referee, but never look back, loved coaching and, had great time at St. Ray's. And, it was an honor to coach my, where I went to high school, and just, it was just a great ride.
Who was like some of the people you kind of looked up to that kind of, make you love the game so much? Because with all the experience you garnered early on it's a testament to how much you love the game.
Definitely my high school coach. Coach Bob Delbovi was a fantastic coach, a great fundamental coach. I learned so much from him. And then I studied the game. I kind of really, I went to a lot of practices, used to go to, watch St. John's practice, any chance I can, Villanova, Hofstra, Iona. And, you just, and to this day, I still do the same thing. I go to DePaul practice, Illinois, UIC, Loyola. When you stop learning the game, then it's probably time to get out because there's so much you can learn every day.
Definitely, I feel that. Your guy Johnny Faberell said I was the student manager at St. Ray's when we won our first title in 1991.
Yes, Johnny Fabergé, love him. He's a true Raven.
Yes,
and that's another thing is I've had a lot of great managers. Managers that just went on to college and became managers. Still working in the game. We had Alex Perez comes to mind, Anthony Duran. They went to St. John's and they were managers at St. John's. Anthony Duran was just an assistant at Manhattan College, and Alex Perez works for Morgan Stanley, and he does financial planning for athletes. So my two sons, my twins, were managers at Illinois. They were managers for me at St. Rita. Just got a couple of managers gigs at Illinois again, and one at Colorado. One of my co-workers at De La Salle's son is at Colorado. I just happened to know the coach. The coach was an assistant coach. He was a manager at Minnesota when Eric, the other Pooh Harris, played at Minnesota, and I went to the game. I always tried to make it a habit to try to see one of my players play a live game before they graduated. So I went out to see Eric, and the manager picked me up from the airport and, brought me to the campus and all that. And that manager is now the head coach at Minnesota.
Nice.
It's a small world.
Definitely a small world. I was doing some research on Made Hoops, and I was looking at, some of the top executives, and a lot of them were ex-managers as well.
Yes. It's a great way to get in the game. If you go down the list and you look at some of the head coaches now in college, some of them were managers, were managers, and that's how they got into the game. And they, go out and pay their dues and start at the bottom and work their way up to the top.
That's the only way to do it. It's the way you earn it.
Yes, absolutely. No doubt.
So, besides your coach, was you watching early N.B.A. games or college games in the Bronx? And what was like your childhood like? What did it consist of? And those things that kind of made you, go in that direction.
Well, I lived in Parkchester area of the Bronx, which was, 1 block to my grammar school at St. Raymond's, 1 block the other way to St. Raymond's High School, 1 block to my grammar school, St. Helena's. So, I grew up with my 2 sisters and my mom. My dad wasn't in my life. He left when I was early and really never knew him. And, we struggled. We grew up with on food stamps and, American government cheese and the whole 9 yards. And, so I kind of understand today, some of the kids who are, struggling with their families because, I've been through it. So, and just kept busy with sports. Sports, kept me busy, kept me off the streets, kept me, on a straight, narrow path. And that's not easy today, with what's going on out there. It's not easy for a lot of these kids.
What was that moment like, Coach, when you experienced, that bug of wanting to be a coach? Like, was it a game or experience that you, and of course you said your high school coach, but like, what was it, something that you went through that said, you know what, this is going to be something I'm gonna do for the rest of my life?
Well, also growing up, I was we had a summer camp called St. Vincent de Paul. It wasn't a basketball camp. It was an all activities camp. And Monsignor Derv and priest in our parish at St. Helena's, ran the camp for the St. Vincent de Paul Society. So a lot of us in the neighborhood would go up there and be counselors and kitchen workers. And that's where I really became the love of working with kids and helping kids. And, I kind of understood that being a coach, you can make a difference in kids' lives. And, that's why I do it. And that's why I still do it today. That, when I can't make a difference in a kid's life or help a kid, then it's probably time to hang it up. But, that's what I've always gone on is, try to make a difference in kids' lives. And, everybody's not going to love you, because basketball's a, tough sport because you only play 5 guys.
Yeah.
A team of, 12 players to 13 players. If you can't play everybody, you play 5 guys. And it's, a little different today because, parents and a lot of the players today are impatient and delusional.
Yeah.
They don't understand. The first time I talk to a kid and bring him in my office, I keep a chart on my wall and it shows how many players are playing high school basketball, which is about 560,000. And I take their finger and I move them down the chart and I go, well, how many of them play college basketball? Well, it's 3.6%. Okay, how many play Division I? 1%. How many played Division II? 1.2. How many played Division III? 1.4. So 3.6% of that 550,000 are going to play college basketball. So you got to be special. You got to be different, And, like we just said, a lot of kids go through being managers, being coaches. We got some great coaches out there that and I know that are not, how about the new head coach at Michigan? How about that? He's a Brooklyn kid.
That's right. Mike Boykins. That's right. That's
How about Michael? You got Orlando who played for me, Orlando Antigua, who's at Illinois, and Terrence Rencher is coaching down at Texas, and obviously Book Emmanuel Richardson was a head coach with Arizona for years, and so I would think, and ironically, those 3 guys I just named, Book, Terrence, and Orlando, they were all on the same team. So I'm hoping I made a difference in their lives, and they got into coaching because of the experience that they had at St. Raymond's. Because we always talk about it. Even my assistant coaches, I tell my assistant coaches, my job is to get you to run your own program, whether that's AAU, whether that's high school, whether that's college. So that's what I want them to do. Everybody that works for me, I want them to run their own program.
No, that's awesome. I have Book Richardson on here. He talked about how you saved his life. How he was walking down 2 paths and playing 2 paths, and you told me he had to make a decision, and he said this guy was tough for me. I thought this guy was crazy, but he did all the stuff he needed to do to keep me on the right track, and he everything. And here we are. I'm getting a chance to talk to you right now, man. But he said some wonderful words about you.
Yeah, I love Book, and Book had a tough life and lived on Clay Avenue down in the Bronx, and I had to go down there sometimes and get him out of the streets, get him off the streets, and just try to keep him busy and keep him in the gym after practice. Keep shooting, come early, stay in the gym as long as we can. And again, I have to owe it all to my wife and family giving me the opportunity to put all this time into kids, and because it's not easy.
What was your first star player at St. Ray's, Gary Massey?
I was an assistant when Gary was there.
Okay.
Gary graduated, went to Villanova the year after they won the national championship. When Gary left, that's when I took over the program. So my first crew was Darryl Reed.
Darryl Reed, yes.
Darryl Reed.
Tough.
Roberto Rivera, Eddie Rivera, who went to Texas El Paso.
Yeah.
Ricky Martin, who's now an assistant coach at North Carolina with Mike Malone.
Yes.
So how about that connection? Mike Malone and Chucky were assistant coaches at Manhattan College for Bobby Gonzalez. That was Chucky's first job in college that helped him get at Manhattan College, and them two worked together for maybe 1 or 2 years, and 30 years later, Mike gets the job at North Carolina and brings Chucky as his top guy. And Michael Thompson is another one, and
Yes, yes. Another guy had in the show. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the team. When we in my second year, we were playing Tullantine High School, who was, top 5 in the country, and
Yes.
they had, Red and Reese and Malik Sealy and those guys, and we beat them in the Archdiocese Championship and knocked them out, and that was the start of St. Raymond's taking the next step and becoming, a national name.
Oh man, that's awesome, man. Hey, salute to Bobby Gonzalez too. He's gonna be honored in Manhattan College Hall of Fame this year. So
yeah, Bobby's a great coach. He did a great job. He's just got a bad rap. He got fired, and I know he's been trying to get back into the game. And there's a lot of coaches who have got fired. I know coaches just say you become a better coach when you got fired. I got fired twice, so it helps you become a better coach. And but there's guys that have done a lot worse than Bobby Gonzalez did, and Bobby just got blackballed in this business for some reason. I don't know why, but he's a very, very good coach.
Well, my former point guard in New York City, legendary coach in his own right, Dwayne Tiny Martin, speaks very highly of you. He said, man, if somebody who made me step my game up as a coach, it was, Gary D, man. So, God.
Yeah, I watched Tiny come up, and I used to call him and say, hey, Tiny, man, you it's not a good look, man. You on the phone while you're coaching, or have an earpiece. I mean, you want to do this, I would always call him, and I'm not the guy that's not afraid to say something to somebody if I could help them.
Yeah.
So.
But hey, listen, coming from New York, you learn to be no nonsense and tell it like it is. Absolutely,
there's no doubt about it.
Yeah. What was that like first year? You're building on what your coach left you, right? And trying to make it your own team. What was that first couple of years like? And what were some of the things you learned about yourself as a coach your first year at St. Ray's?
Well, as I always say to all my coaches, when you're an assistant coach, you get to do everything that the head coach don't want to do, right? And you learn a lot of things what to do, and you learn a lot of things not what to do. You don't want to copycat people. You got to get your own system. You got to have your own ideas and your own things. And to be honest with you, I built all my teams based on defense and rebounding. Offense to me takes care of itself. If you get a team that really buy in and guard and be physical and rebound the ball, you're gonna score points just off of that. So I just took defense to another level and became change a lot of defenses and go from one press to another press to another press based on how you score. Change up from man to zone. I wasn't afraid to try anything. I'd be in a huddle and we do something that we'd never, practice on and say, okay, let's do this and diagram it. And the guys go out and they execute it. That's how they learn too. And then you bring it back, you watch it on film, and then you talk about it the next day in practice, and then you put it into your playbook. So I feel I'm a gut coach. I go with my gut. I don't. I'm not an analytic guy. I'm not into analytics, except I know two things about analytics. The corner shot and the floater are the two worst percentage shots in the game of basketball.
Yes.
And what does every kid want to do? He wants to shoot a three in the corner, and he wants to take a floater down the lane. I'm trying to reinvent the wheel here and, take that short game and utilize that short game. Eddie Rivera had a great short game, man. He get in the paint and pull up. And I'm trying to tell these guys who are 5'6" and 5'7", man, you're going into trees down there. Get in the lane, just jump stop and shoot the ball.
Right.
Elevate and shoot like Arnold Bernard used to do.
Yes, yes.
So, but
when I speak to a lot of coaches, they always talk about being a risk taker, right? It's like, you can have X and O's all you want, right? All the diagrams, but if you're not afraid to take a risk, like you said, you'll draw up a play that the guys never even saw before, but you'll take a chance and bet on your team.
Sure, absolutely. There's only so many X's and O's there are out there, right? So don't be afraid to you know, I'll watch a game and say, wow, I really like that, man. I think that could help our team, and I'll put it in the next day. I have no problem doing that. You know, my assistant coaches, you know, always yell, man, you got 1,000 sets. I said, yeah, but I just don't want to be a motion coach, because when you're in motion, the wrong guy shoots the ball all the time.
Yeah.
I want to dictate who. I want to make sure my best players are getting good shots.
Now, you know, you being a veteran coach, how do you let the other guys, which they probably would know already, know that, you know, you want the best player to take the shot? And, you know, I know this as a player, but kind of explained it to other players and coaches, how coaches identify who's the best guy and who they want to be taking those shots.
Well, you know, I think that all comes from practice. You know, I always used to say practice is harder than the games, right? When you have 12 quality players and you can go every day and practice against each other. I'm not one of these guys that, you know, here's my starting 5. Okay, and every day we're going to go against the next 5. I always mix and integrate it and blend them together, and because in the fourth quarter in the game, you're not going to have that 5 out there that you want.
That's right.
Somebody's going to foul out. Somebody's going to do this. Somebody could get hurt. You know, somebody gets a technical. You know, my rule is you get technical, you come out. You know, so you know, that all comes from practice. You know, practice. You know, I always say everybody doesn't play in a game, but everybody practices, you know? So I think that all comes from practice. You got to battle it out in practice.
All right, let's go back and discuss something you said, Coach, because, you know, I ain't gonna let you just let that fly over our head like this, right? Because now we're talking about discipline. If a player gets attacked, he has to come out and sit down.
Yeah, I don't sit him the whole game. I'll take him out and sit him down, and he knows, everybody knows, you're going to get a tech. You're coming out, sit down, cool down. You know, assistant coach, I won't go talk to him because he's mad, I'm mad, so I'm not getting anywhere there. I've learned to, you know, let them cool down a little bit, and then, you know, okay, are you ready to go now? And, you know, you get another technical. Remember, you're gone, and you have to sit the next game, you know, depending on what state I was in coaching. You know, every state has different rules. So make sure you're good, you're calm, cool, and collected. And I think one of the biggest complaints I hear all the time is, you know, how the kids are different. I don't think the kids are different. I think the coaches are different. I think the parents are different. You know, I think coaches are afraid to coach their best players because they're afraid they're going to lose them and they're going to transfer. You know, I'm okay. Guys want to leave and they want to transfer. There's the door, man. Don't let it hit you in your ass on the way out. You know, if you think you could find something better for yourself, go ahead. But I'm going to coach you as hard as I'm going to coach the number 1 player and the number 12 or 13 player on the team.
Hey, Coach, let me tell you something. In the last, well, this will be the 3rd year that New York City has had a transfer portal.
It's everywhere.
Honestly,
it's everywhere.
It went from 30 kids transferring to, no, I think probably maybe it's the 4th year, to 60 kids transferring to almost 80 kids last year transferred.
Yep.
It was ridiculous. Like, and I guess they see the college players doing it, so now everybody's moving. Nobody wants to go through the fire, you know. And now, you know, more parents are going to the games than ever. Did a lot of parents come to the games when you was coaching at St. Ray's?
No, you know, not many kids had coached, you know, that I coached had both parents. A lot of them single parent homes, and not many came. Some did come, but now, you know, now they're coming because I hear the complaints about parents. $40 to get in and watch my son play in some of these AAU tournaments.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
It's gotten out of control. It's you know, I don't know how you fix it. Once the NCAA, you know, let the genie out of the bottle, you ain't putting that back in the bottle. And it's because they were selfish, you know, 20 years ago. You know, they should have paid the players back then, and you wouldn't have those problems. You know, and when I mean pay them, you know, kids. I was a Division I coach at the highest level for 7 years, and you know, kids don't have any. I got kids. Hey, coach, can you give me $10? You know, so I can do my laundry, or can I borrow $20? I love that word, borrow. You're not getting it back, right? No, can I borrow $20 to take my girl to the movies and, you know, get some, you know, and of course I do it, but it was a violation. it could be a violation. And you don't know how, if kids turn on you and say, oh, wait, coach gave me money to do this. But just think about it. Think about the rules they had and the rules that they don't have now. It's complete opposite. I mean, people got fired. Kelvin Sampson got fired for excess phone calls. Excess phone calls.
It's crazy.
Now you could call a kid 62 times in one day if you want to. I mean, the rules were, insane, and now there's no rules. So why is there dead periods? Why is there live periods? Let the coaches go out whenever they want. Why are they restricting a kid an opportunity to get exposure when maybe there's coaches out there like Jimmy Valvano was when he was the coach at Iona College to get Jeff Ruland. You know how he got Jeff Ruland? He just outworked everybody. He went to see him play every day, because back then there was no rules.
Yeah, they had a great team to that Iona team.
Yeah, and he built a relationship with Jeff Ruland, and that's how he got him to go to Iona. So why can't what are coaches doing? They're making $300,000. Assistant coaches, they're making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. What are they doing in practice? You go to some of these practices, they don't even say a word. The head coach is the only one that could talk. So let them go out. Let them go out and recruit. You don't need 7 coaches at practices. My first 4 years at St. Raymond's, I did it myself. And then I started hiring assistant coaches. I mean, why are they in practice every day? What are they doing? Just let them go out and recruit. Dead period, live periods. What? It makes no sense anymore. But you could pay a kid $2 million, but you only could go out during July in these 2 live periods. Come on.
And they only service the big Power 5 conferences, right? And they forget about the little guy. And then once the guys go to the smaller schools, they got to kind of prepare them for the Power 5 anyway. So
yeah. Well, I could see that why the Power 5, like if I'm at Kentucky, why do I got to follow the same rules as FDU? If I have money to fly in my families of my players to come in to watch games on a private jet, and I could do that, and I have the means to do that, I can't do it because FDU can't do it or St. Peter's can't do it. So I think you're going to see in the next 5 years, the big conferences forming their own league, and the NCAA going to probably be abolished, and all the other teams will go. It'll be almost like NCAA NIT formula type thing. There'll be one big tournament for the Big 5 power conferences, and there'll be another tournament for everybody else. That's the way I see this going. I don't know, but who knows what's going to happen in 5 years.
No, football is actually inching that way now, right? You see,
yes.
Football, or they getting their conferences together. These schools is leaving their conferences that they were in to join up, and I believe so too. I think sooner or later they will have their own leagues and conferences, and they're gonna move how they want to move. Too many rules. They just changed the rule again the other night on the age rules. Like, they can't make up their mind.
Right. Now we're giving kids 5 years. And so what they did is they've hurt the high school kids. The high school kids they're the ones right now getting hurt. They can't get any scholarships, unless you're a top, 10 player or ESPN top 20 player in the country. You don't need to be evaluated. They know who you are, right? But the other kids are the ones that are getting hurt because they can't get anything because college coaches are not recruiting high school kids. You've heard in New York, Coach Pitino said it, I'm not recruiting any high school kids. Why would I? I'm going to go recruit the porter. I'm going to recruit a kid that's bigger, stronger, that has a year experience. But they're recruiting, some places are recruiting kids that scored 1 point and played 8 minutes a game, but they're taking them because they're mature, they're bigger, they're stronger, and that's just the way they're going now. And it's hurting the high school kids. A high school kid could go 4 years of high school, then go to prep school for 2 years, then may have to go to junior college for 2 years, okay? Then may have to go D2 for a year, okay, to get to D1. That might be the route. And there's a lot of kids who have done that route in the last 4 years, okay? And, is there anything wrong with that? No. I mean, it's not. Back in the day, when they had Prop 48 and a kid went to JUCO, he was already labeled, well, he's going to JUCO because he got no grades, right? Or you go to prep school in the New England, back when I was at St. Ray's, the New England prep schools were, really big. Like
I went to MCI my senior year.
Yeah, Chucky Martin, I put in St. Thomas More Prep because he was too old his senior year to play, under the New York high school rules. So
now you can play at 19.
Yeah, but back then you couldn't, and then so that was the big thing back then. The East Coast would put their kids in the prep schools, the Midwest would put their kids in the JUCOs back then. But when a kid went JUCO, everybody always labeled him, he's going to JUCO because he got no grades, or he's going to prep school because he had no grades, but now that's a route you may have to go, because now you got 5 years to play 5 years. That's another thing they changed. It used to be 4 to 5, you play 4 and 5 years, but now you get 5 years for 5 years. So that another rule that's going to hurt the high school kids. So everybody right now who's a junior, sophomore, freshman in college gets another year. It's every year they're just changing the rules.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man, this is crazy. JE90s BK said Dana Dingle was a good player as well. I totally forgot he went to St. Ray's. Another great coach, right? Started
solid,
a program.
Solid. He's doing a great job with the AAU program.
Yeah.
Him and oh man,
Shandu,
right? Who played him?
Yes.
They built a great program with the Lightning, and they're doing a great job with them. Dana played. Dana was helped. Dana went to UMass when Calipari was. Nobody knew who Calipari was.
That's a fact
at the time, and Dana went there. Charlton Clark went there, and Quintana Rima. I sent 3 players to Calipari at UMass. Then that's when he split for the Nets, and the rest is history with him. But But Dana started all 4 years at UMass, never missed a game. Was a starter for all 4 years, and they went to Final Four in New Jersey. He played in the Final Four that was held in the Brendan Byrne Arena back then. I think that was the last year that before they went to big stadiums.
Yeah. Wow. Dave Cordova said one thing about Coach DeCesare is that he has produced a lot of coaches.
Yes, and like I said that earlier, I want everybody to work for me, become a head coach or run their own programs, And Dana's obviously running his own program, and Oliver was my assistant. He became the head coach at St. Raymond's, and I can go on and on and on and on.
Nah, it's look, but that's what it's about, right?
Absolutely.
It's about passing the torch, getting kids ready for the next level, and having them understand that you could do so many things in basketball. A lot of us kids, especially the young kids, they think everybody's going to the NBA. And I have to break a lot of kids' hearts. And I remember, oh man, I was coaching some years ago. It's elementary school. And the parent came up because she wanted to talk to me because she told me I killed her son's dream about wanting to play in the NBA. I said, no, I was just telling him the truth.
That's right.
I played basketball. I understand. And then once I told her my history, she kind of understood where I was coming from. But she really came up to the school just because she thought her kid, just because he played in the 5th grade, he was going to the NBA. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah, one of my problems is, and my assistant coaches tell me all the time, is that I'm too honest. I tell it like it is to parents, and they're telling me, well, sometimes you got to beat around the bush. I said, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to tell it like it is. So everybody's not going to be a doctor. Everybody's not going to be a lawyer. Everybody's not going to be an NBA player. So you got to have backup plans and. I've talked to one of the greatest compliments I get from a lot of kids who play for me that weren't, the top guys, come back and say, Coach, man, you really made a difference in my lives. And it was, now back then I didn't understand what you were doing and saying, but, now that's what I do with my own kids growing up, and it's, everything that you taught me. And that's what it's about, making a difference in kids' lives. And that's how I started off today. Night was that's why I do it, to try to make a difference in kids' lives. And you're not going to make a difference in everybody's lives. You can't save everybody. You try, you give kids chances, second chances, third chances, but you can't change the world. You can just keep trying and giving kids chances, and hopefully sometime the light bulb clicks. They get it.
Well, I think once you change someone's life, you kind of change the world in a way, right? 'Cause you change that person's world,
Sure.
right? And
Yes.
and you have done a lot. It says fast break recruitment. My guy Gary D playing here was special. Tell him Joe Emilio from St. Ray's says he's changed his life, and St. Ray's and all those kids legendary. Appreciate you, fast break recruitment. Thank you. Yeah, look, a lot of love. People's online, it's Instagram, they're on Facebook. They all giving you your flowers, man, because what you did was set a precedence for him.
And Joey Emilio is another story. He played on our B team. And he's a head coach now of a prep school in New England. He was the head coach at Scarsdale, I believe, 3 or 4 years, and he just took over a prep school. So, he's in coaching now, making a difference in kids' lives. Joey's great people.
Wow. So, with the history of the Captain School League, I am doing right now the all decades team. So I started from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and now the 90s, right? Up to the 90s. During that time, you watch the progression from the PSCL having a lot of players, and then the Catholic school, I think it started in the 80s, right? It was some in the 70s, but it started like in the 80s to really, really come into a zone. Then the 90s kind of took over, with this 1990s all-decade team. The only person from the PSCL is Stephon Marbury. Everybody else is from the Catholic School League.
Those, I back at one point in the 80s, every game in the Catholic League was like the baby Big East.
Yes.
The real Big East, not the Big East today. The Big
Right.
East when we were, young guys, and when they had the, Syracuse and all those teams, and you go on the court, you got 4 or 5 Division I players, and you're going to play Tallentine High School, and they got 6 Division I players. You're going to play, Malloy, and they got 5 Division I players. You're going to play Cardinal Hayes, and they got Jamal Mashburn and 4 or 5 Division I players. So every game was a war, back then, a war.
There was, when we talk about, I always look at it as, and how can I say this? There were certain rules in public school, right? Because you had to be a certified teacher, right? And then you guys didn't have that rule. So a lot of the community coaches, CYO coaches, especially CYO was big back then, right? It only lives right now on Staten Island in the city because the AAU has taken over so much throughout the boroughs. But you guys were able to come in and, develop as a coach under great coaches that was before you. And, some of you, a lot of you get, getting the torch passed to you and continue on the ranks. And, having a select few of those kids come through. You look at all the names, man. There was so many. The 1990s had more McDonald All-Americans, I think, than any decade.
That's correct. Yes, there was a lot of great players, and it's never going to be duplicated.
No.
You can't. And the New York Catholic League back then was, by hands down, the best league in the country at the time.
Yeah,
because we just had, and what we did at St. Raymond's, really where we got on the national scene was, I kind of took a page out of Christ the King, because Christ the King was like the first team to start really traveling and going to national tournaments. So I would, go back and meet with, Coach Oliva back at the time and talked to him about, hey, can you recommend me into the tournament that you just went to last year? And he did. And, we started going to, tournaments. We went to Alaska and we're playing Trajan Langdon's team and Boozer's team. And, and we're beating them and we're winning these national tournaments. We go to Hawaii and we won that tournament. We go to Florida. We won that tournament. And now that's how St. Raymond's really got on the national scene, and, there was 1 week of 1 year where we were 3 in the country. And again, who knows with all these rankings, right? Who does that and who believes any of that? But we were 3. And we went to a tournament and played number 1, who was Simon Gratz at the time. And,
yes.
And we beat them. And then the next game we played number 2, who was St. Joe's out of California, who had Jason Kidd. And we beat them. So we left Florida beating number 1 and 2, and we became number 1 in the country. And we went to Myrtle Beach High School that same week. And we now were playing like the 10th ranked team in the country from Missouri. They had these twins. One of them was a national story. One of them lost his leg on a train track or something like that, and lost his career. But we beat them, and then in the next round we get St. Joe's again, and Jason Kidd goes off and has like 50 points, and we lose by 6.
Woo.
That was all in 1 week. So.
Jesus.
So that was the most incredible week of basketball that you could possibly have as a high school coach.
Now, you said that Talenton, you mentioned Talenton a lot. Were they your rivals?
Yeah.
Or was it Cardinal Hayes?
It was more. Talenton closed when, like 2 years after we beat them in an Archdiocese championship. So we were more All Hallows and Cardinal Hayes. And, but when I was playing, our rivals were Mount St. Michael, Cardinal Spellman, at St. Ray's when Bob Delbovi was the coach and I was playing for him. When I got the job, the league kind of shifted and changed because Talenton closed. And then really going into the 90s, our biggest rival in competition was Rice. Like yes. we had the most unbelievable games with Rice. We had to take the games out of our high school gym and move it over to Fordham and Iona because we just couldn't accommodate. I mean, we would have pre-sale tickets and we have tickets printed up, and I would keep like 50 of them. And at the day of the game, I give them to my managers and I tell them, go outside and sell them and keep the money for yourselves. So they go out there and sell them on the streets for everybody trying to get in. So.
This is why they call you the godfather of the Catholic School League. I've heard that several times. So those teams, those Rice teams were amazing. And you guys imagine it's back and forth. Those games must have been legendary. It was a time when, I used to just read the papers and see, and read about some of these great names and great players that was playing against each other. What was that like after, seeing the rise, right? Because you first had to see the rise of Rice first, right? Because, they were in that pack of schools that you had mentioned before, right? Yeah. Mo Hicks gets the job. You're seeing the rise of Rice. You're seeing Talenton close, right? And, All Hallows kind of dips a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Right. Mount St. Michael's, they're still steady. And the other school that you mentioned, what was it?
Cardinal Spellman.
Right?
Right. So now the powers are Stepinac and Iona, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And the Stepinac was no.
Yeah, well, when Rice closed and Talenton closed, and then
I want to say Iona, but Stepinac definitely is a power right now.
Yeah. Yes. And then, All Hallows closed. And, so, some of the Catholic schools were closing, it's tough to maintain when, when you're running on tuition based. and trying to stay afloat and be able to pay bills and all of that. And so those schools closed down, and then, some of the coaches left, and the league just kind of took a real big dip, and it's happening everywhere. I'm in Chicago too. Chicago was really, really good. In Chicago, the public schools were the powerhouses when I first got here in Chicago.
Yes.
Now it's the Catholic leagues or the power, and the public schools have, taken a little dip. So I've seen it go both ways from New York and Chicago. Same thing in New York. There was the public schools, right? Grady and trying to get into a Lincoln Grady game back then, right?
Listen, I think that was the greatest rivalry in New York City history.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember trying to go scout because we had, I think we were playing Lincoln coming up, and I couldn't even get in the gym.
Right.
I couldn't get in the gym. They wouldn't let me in the gym. It was so packed. So, but then it all changed. The Catholic schools come up and the public schools went down. And, but I think in New York, that had to do more with the quality of education, I think, and the safety of, some of the schools got tough and rough around the edges, and parents wanted to get kids into Catholic school where there was a little more discipline at the time. And, but some of those rivals, Manhattan Center and boys and girls, those teams were great. They were really, really good. Stan Dinner at Manhattan Center had some great teams. And
yes, they did.
And
we actually played them in the city championship in '86, Manhattan Center. Stevenson was good back then.
Stevenson with Steve Post and Eddie Pinkney, and back then in the day, some great teams.
Wow, with all the success that you started to have in 1991, you guys won your first city championship, right?
Yes.
That was like that year. Terrence Rencher is leading the way, right? Now, I always kind of try to figure out why didn't he make McDonald All-American? Then I go to Jamal Mashburn. Jamal Mashburn was also Mr. Basketball in New York and didn't make McDonald All-American. How did this happen?
Well, a lot of that's politics, and I it took me 25 years later to figure out why Terrence didn't make the McDonald's game, because one of my good friends here, who's the coach at DePaul Prep, Tommy Kleinschmidt, he was playing at the Gordon Tech at the time in 1991, and he was a great high school basketball player. And from what I was told by somebody, I don't know, somebody told me this about 10 years ago, the final vote came down to Terrence Rencher and Tommy Kleinschmidt, and Tommy Kleinschmidt got it and was in the McDonald's game there. So, there was a lot of politics involved in the McDonald's game and all of that, and there still is today. You're not in a McDonald's game unless you're a top ESPN top 20 player. But I think a lot of those lost their luster. A lot of those games, and back.
Listen, 2 years ago, I left at halftime when it was at the Barclays Center.
Wow. Yeah.
Honestly, I left at halftime. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this. And then, my guys was like, yeah, the practice was way better than the game.
Yeah. And that was intimidating. When I coached the McDonald's game in Chicago, we had practice in one of these, I think it was Michael Jordan's gym or something like that. It was a small gym. And you're running practice with, I had Trey Young and the guys like that. This was the year before COVID, I believe. And, you're running practice for 3 or 4 days in front of every N.B.A. scout, coach, general manager. They're all at the practices. That was pretty intimidating. And you're having guys that you don't know, and they don't know you. And I just went into the game saying, listen, I'm going to coach this game like they're all my guys. So I just went after them all and challenged them all. And, I'm not going to see them again after the game.
That's
anyway.
right, the Gary D way. That's right.
Yeah. So I just did it that way, and it worked out pretty good. And we had a good time.
How did the sneaker companies change the game?
Well, I'm very close with Sonny Vaccaro, and Sonny.
Yes.
Sonny was, back in the day, I started working Nike camp. I got into the Nike camp when it was at Princeton University. And that's back when Sonny was with Nike. And then Sonny.
Was that the FB camp? Was that the FB
Yes.
camp?
Yes.
Yes.
With Richie Cossack. Rich, right?
Yeah.
Richie did the academic part, and then Sonny left and broke off and went to at that time, I'm going to say Converse for a year, and this is how I got hired to run the camp. Was Eric Harris and Kareem Reed were in the game in the camp, and it was in California. No, it was in Michigan. It was at I forget what university, but it was in Michigan. And I went to go to the game to watch. I went to the camp to watch those guys play. I wasn't even part of the camp. And
wow.
Bill Aber, who's a very good friend of mine, the coach at LaSalle, and we never mentioned LaSalle High School at the time, where Ron Artest, went, right? And they had Shamgard Wells, and they had unbelievable teams too. But anyway, Billy was hired because Billy was the head coach at Five Star Basketball Camp. And Five Star Basketball Camp at the time was really hard. They only hired 8 or 9 high school coaches to work, because at that time the college coaches were allowed to work until the NCAA made another ridiculous rule that college coaches couldn't work there. So at the recommendation of Goff to Sonny, he said, Billy Aber's your guy to run the camp. And, if anybody knows working for Sonny is, you got to be ready to change on the fly, because that's Sonny's change on the fly. And Billy was more, disciplined, and this is, everything that this is the way we're going to do it.
About a book, step by step, very analytical, yes.
And it just didn't work out. So Sonny grabbed me from the stands and asked me to come down and run the camp. And from there, I ran it every year for the next 20 years. When Sonny went to Reebok, to Adidas, to Reebok, to, and ironically, Coach Hartstein was with Nike, and at the time, and then we kind of stole them from Nike and brought him over with us, and me and him were co-directors for the next 15 years or so, and we sat side by side for 15 years and had a great time.
Man, who do you think was one of the greatest players you've seen come out of that camp?
Whew.
I know it's a lot.
The camp's made a lot of great players. I mean, I think one of the biggest things was Tracy McGrady, because Tracy McGrady, it was the All-Star game, and he came down the court and kind of did like a Jordan-esque type of a dunk. He took off from the foul line over 2 people, dunked the ball, and at FDU, everybody in the stands ran on the court, and it was mayhem for 5 minutes. But that made Tracy McGrady. That dunk created Tracy McGrady.
And he also wasn't invited to the camp. He got that slot because somebody, right?
Yeah, we got him last minute. We got him in the last minute too. Yeah, and there's a lot of stories like that. I could go on. But Sonny created the monster, and now Sonny's kind of behind the scene. Behind the name, image, and likeness thing.
Yeah.
And so he created the monster by starting the sneaker things and signing coaches to sneaker deals, and now he's on the players' side to get paid, and was involved in behind the scenes in that lawsuit with the name, image, and likenesses.
Yes, with the O'Bannon brothers. Yes, yep. He is truly the godfather of grassroots basketball.
No doubt about it. He is the man. Is he's like a father to me, and his wife Pam is, like a second family to me. So my wife Pam and here we were, Sonny Vaccaro, Gary DeCesare, Pam DeCesare, and Pam Vaccaro going against $1 billion company in Nike, trying to go head to head with them with, camp, who's going to have the better camp, who's going to have the better players. And, it became a competition, and it's kind of crazy because, Phil Knight was like in Sonny Vaccaro's like wedding party, wedding party. So, it's just kind of crazy how things happen and the stories and so, but Sonny is, he's a true legend of the game.
Yeah, I read his book. Oh man, it's amazing.
Yep.
Amazing. Definitely. What's your thoughts on AAU?
Necessary evil. It's like anything in the world, right? There's good high school coaches, there's bad high school coaches, there's good cops, there's bad cops, there's good doctors, bad doctors, good lawyers, bad lawyers. There's good AAU coaches and there's bad AAU coaches. But the bad AAU coaches are the ones that gave the bad name to AAU. Back in the day, I forget the guy's name, but getting paid or whatever it was, or selling players, or it's just the structure of it all. It became why the NCAA is involved in grassroots. I have no idea. Why they are certifying events, I have no idea. Well, we do it for money, right? Because they're doing it. Kids have to, event operators have to pay a fee, so they're certifying. Why? Here's a great one. Why is the NCAA create a clearinghouse for kids to be eligible to play college basketball when all these universities spend millions of dollars in admissions offices, admissions directors? There's buildings that is admissions. So if Manhattan College wants to take a kid in their college, okay, why is the NCAA involved in that? They have to certify the kid. Why isn't Manhattan College making that decision? I never understood that. Like, why is there a third-party entity certifying kids to be eligible to college? Mind-boggling to me. Why? Because every kid has to pay $80, and add that up across the country, it's a lot of money. And that was $80 back then. I don't even know what it is now. It's probably more than that. But the university, so if a kid wasn't a good test taker and he had a bad SAT and ACT score back then, and now today that doesn't even matter, right?
No, which is crazy to me. And they create the Prop 48, stifle all of these kids, take away a year from them, and now they don't have to take
all those kids that were Prop 48s. They should get a civil lawsuit going against them, because they deprived those kids, back when John Thompson, walked off the court, and I agree with them all 100%. Prop 48, you're labeling kids, telling them that they're not good students, but sometimes, and I'm in education my entire life. I was an assistant principal. Sometimes kids are not good test takers, but they have great grades.
Yeah.
But their grades are good and they're great people. But now you're being judged because you scored a 720 on the SAT instead of whatever the requirement is, 820 or back then, and now a kid has to lose a year of eligibility because of that.
And they're not taking to the fact that there's 8 learning styles, right? But yet you set your tests up to be a right brain sort of style test. And man, I study all of this stuff, man. Or a left brain kids, a left brain thinker, and you got to think anyway. That's a whole nother subject.
Oh yeah, absolutely, I agree. I'm 100% with you. There's no doubt in my mind the test was racist and everything.
It was disgusting, man. And I love having these conversations because you're not only just we're talking about yourself, giving you your flowers, but also you're giving a lot of information that's very important for people that's going to be watching this show later on and even now, because these things are very, very important, and I appreciate you. So let's dig back to the boat. What did you leave New York City?
Well, that was kind of a family decision. I was at St. Raymond's, and one of the big difference between public and Catholic is Catholic teachers made nothing compared to the public schools. Coach Hartstein's living on a nice pension right now. I was 17 years at St. Raymond's. I don't have a pension from there. It's
well, he also was a teacher, right?
Yeah, definitely he was a teacher.
Yeah.
And so at the time, in 2000 and I guess it was 2002 or 1999. Back whenever it was, my wife was pregnant with my twins, and I was doing 90 things to make ends meet, and I was just getting burnt out, you know. And I had an opportunity to go to the University of Richmond with Coach Wainwright, and Coach Wainwright was my roommate at 5-star basketball camp. That's where you made, you know, relationships with, you know, because it's all about relationships, right?
Yeah.
Everything in the world is about relationships. It's not what's the saying? It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Who you know. It's
right?
who knows you, really.
Yeah. So, and you know, he was coming from Wilmington, and he went to Richmond, and they were moving into the A10, and the A10 is really an East Coast conference.
Yeah.
And he had an opening on his staff at the last minute, and he wanted the East Coast guy. And, you know, one thing led to another. And, you know, when we were talking and said, you know, well, what's the salary and, you know, what it was, and, you know, 6-figure job. And what do you do? Just basketball? You just coach basketball and that's it? Like, I was naive. You know, you just come in, you coach basketball, and your whole life is basketball.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no other duties, nothing, blah, blah, blah. Well, how do I sign up for this? You know, and we, you know, took a chance and, you know, went to, you know, once you leave, because it was funny. I was talking to somebody the other day. They asked me, you know, if I never left St. Raymond's, I'd be going in my 41st year this year.
Ooh.
Right. I would be the next Jack Curran. Right. But I never looked back. You know, everything I did, you know, did for a reason, and it helped, you know, our family. But, you know, it's kind of crazy because, you know, at the time it was, you know, I did it because I had to better my family, you know, and, you know, and once you leave, you never know where you're going to end up. I never in my life, I thought I'd be in Chicago, you know, in Illinois. You know, I remember being a little kid and coming home after school and putting on the TV, and you're watching DePaul University because they had their own network, right? The Cubs were always on in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And in the winter, it was always DePaul, and they had those long jerseys with the names on the bottom of the jerseys, you know, McGuire. And they always had
the different
stripes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they always had a New York kid, you know, on the team, right? Point guard.
Kenny Patterson, Ross Strickland. Yeah, yeah.
Rashawn Berno, and, you know, on and on and on. And, you know, you always watched up, and I'm like, you know, I'm starting to like the Cubs a little bit. I'm starting to watch like DePaul, you know, because that's all you watched on TV. They had their own. They had their own ESPN network back then.
It was called WGN.
Yeah, WGN.
My God, CK
Yeah.
from State. Yeah.
So, you know, then we did very well at Richmond, and you got an NCAA at-large bid and got to the tournament, and Coach got the job at DePaul University. He's from Chicago. He was a high school coach in Chicago, Coach Wainwright, and took me along with him as associate head coach. And we were there for 5 years. And, you know, we did decent. You know, we had some good years, and we had some bad years. You know, we were 10-6 at one point in the Big East, the real Big East. And, you know, we went 10-6, and that was in 2004. And DePaul hasn't won, I don't think, more than 5. Maybe this year they won 5 or 6 Big East games, but they haven't won more than 4 or 5 Big East games since that team that we had. And then the next year we lost Wilson Chandler to the draft. Quavius Tucker went into the draft, and we went from 10-6 to 0-16. So you went from being on the top to being on the bottom, and you know how, you know, people are different because, you know, when you're walking in a job and everybody wants to stop and talk to you, and then the next year everybody's trying to avoid you, right? You know, you're on the firing block. So when the head coach gets fired, everybody gets fired.
Yes,
and
that's not the dangers, but that's the risk of coaching college basketball.
Sure,
right? Because everything depends on record and you know, what have you done for me lately?
Right, and you know, as Coach Calipari always says, you know, everybody gets fired. You become a better coach, right? Calipari was fired, Pitino was fired, Bobby Knight was fired. You know, you go on and on and on. You know, and you bounce back, and you become a better coach, and you learn from your mistakes.
What year was it that you left St. Ray's?
2002.
2002. So that year in 1999, when you guys shocked Rice, right? Do you remember that game? And the reason why I wanted to go back a little bit because there's a gentleman that I want to mention and talk about because I just recently found out about him. And I'm be honest, Majestic Matt.
He was a McDonald's All-American.
Yes, when we was talking about all decade teams and names, and his names came up, I was like, wow, what a beautiful name! Like Jesus, like I know about Kareem Reed, I know about Julius Hodge, but for some reason, I was just not too informed on Majestic Map. What made Majestic Map so special?
His name. No,
because you never forget it. Like Majestic Map, a coach is like, yeah, I gotta watch this kid play.
It was funny. One day I was driving into work, because I lived over the Tappan Zee Bridge, and I was listening to Howard Stern, and Majestic's dad was on it. Okay, because they read about this kid Majestic Map in the newspaper, right?
Wow.
In the Daily News. Because as you said back in the day, we were getting all the pub in the Daily News and the Post.
Yep.
And that was because the New York teams were bad back then, right? The Yankees were, bad at the time. They were coming back up. The Knicks were bad. So we were kind of like the pro team in the papers. We were getting stories every day. I mean, we had Stephen A. Smith covering us. It's funny. I was listening to him the other day and say, how he paid his dues and he started as a high school writer. And I'm in the car saying, I got copies of his articles when he was covering us.
Right.
Stephen A. Smith, the writer, and I took pictures of him, and I've been trying to get his number from somebody to send them to him, because he wrote these stories. But
I got a plug for you.
Okay.
Yes.
But I was trying to send these articles to him so he could see them and show everybody that I did start at the bottom and work my way up to the top, and he did. He was good. He was a good dude, and so. I'm sorry, I got off track here.
We talk about what kind of player Majestic, right?
I'm driving, and his dad is so. Howard Stern told Gary DeCesare, "Hey, go find this kid Majestic Map and get his dad, and let's find out why he called him Majestic Map." So I'm listening to the story as I'm driving in my car, and his dad's name was Scientific.
Yes.
Map. His brother's name,
brother
Scientific. Was Scientific.
Yeah.
Majestic, and there was what was the younger one? Oh man. It was another
somebody. Hey, chat. What was the younger brother's name, if you know?
But
I'll let you know.
So the dad gets on, and so Howard Stern says to him, "How in the world would you name your son Majestic?" And the dad had a classic line. He goes, "Why would your parents name you Howard?" I thought it was funny. I almost got in an accident. I was rolling.
Right.
But Majestic was a great player, man. He worked his butt off every day. He lived right behind the school, so he had the keys to the gym. He'd come in and shoot, and he'd come in the back door.
Point guard or two guard.
Point guard. He went to the university. Ironically, Bobby Gonzalez recruited him when he was an assistant coach at the University of Virginia for Pete Gillen. Okay, another story. Pete Gillen was my roommate at 5-star too. Pete was the head coach at the University of Virginia. And Majestic just had a great senior year, phenomenal senior year. And, and his name might have helped him get that McDonald's vote too. Because I promoted the hell out of him. I wrote every member of the committee because I wasn't going to let that one go by, the mistake that they made with Terrence. I wasn't going to let that happen. And Terrence is the Southwest Conference leading scorer in the history. Nobody could break that because that conference is not there no more when he went to Texas.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he set scoring records over there. Like, he played for Tom Penders, who was the Fordham coach. And Tom Penders, offensive philosophy was when in doubt, shoot it.
He's a great. He coached my teammate Carlton Owens at Rhode Island.
Absolutely.
So he's a great coach of guards. And when I had Terrence on the show, we were talking about he was explaining to me about all the success he had in high school and college. And once he got to the N.B.A., it was a little bit different. And he said he let his ego get him out of the league early because, you got to start over.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're having so much success, and I tell us to kids, when I have players on, always talk about the different transitions in their life. Right. Because every time you starting over.
Yep,
and there's a
absolutely.
different transition. And I think sometimes when you're not ready for that transition, things can go bad. You know, you could be a great kid in junior high school and have a big name and get to high school and totally disappear.
Yeah, I use the totem pole. I used to say it all the time to the guys. I said, Terrence, you're on the top of the totem pole right now, but next year when you go to Texas, you're going to be at the bottom of the totem pole, and you got to work your way back up. And he did, and some kids do that, and some kids can't do that.
Yeah, it's kind of
hard. Terrence should write a book on the short game because he had the greatest, 1-2 dribble into the lane, pull up, jump shot. Him, Eddie Rivera were great at it. Alan Ray was great at it. Who went to Villanova. And I got a guard right now that I'm coaching that I'm really trying to beat this into his head. But you're competing against the step back three of Steph Curry.
Yes.
So kids want to drive and step back instead of just drive and elevate and shoot. But we just keep drilling it, and hopefully they get it.
Being one of the league guys in New York City, as far as giving guys write-ups and things of that nature, because the paper don't cover the high school sports no more. There's no more MSG, so my high school show, High School Basketball Weekly, which I do with my guy Ryan Kirk for Made Hoops. We try to keep that thing going, and I didn't know that until I got back into the game, because it was just the Basketball Head podcast where I would just talk about the legends and the greats, and then I found out that there was no outlets for the high school kids. You had guys like Dave joined from Dave Cordova doing it. You have Real Scout, All Things Hoops was doing a little bit, but you had NYC Prospects now, they're doing it. So it's up to us to kind of lead the charge on that. I'm saying that because when I first walked into St. Ray's gym,
the new gym or the old gym?
The new gym. I never even been to the old gym.
The old gym was great 6-man advantage. The ceiling was so low. We used to press. You couldn't throw the ball long because you hit the ceiling.
Right. Right. Well, those are the old Catholic school gyms. This gym, definitely should be the, Gary D's gym, but anyway, I'm gonna let you know, when you walk in there, you see the history, and I was totally blown away. Your school, the St. Ray's gym, made me go around to every other high school, and if they didn't celebrate their great players and their legacy, I would get on a coach. Like, what are y'all doing? Why is the wall so naked?
Yeah.
Like,
and
if you don't know the history, I'll tell you the history of this school so you can understand what you guys have to do.
Yeah, and I tell you, I did that all on my own, man. I would call the university, get the jersey, get it, cut the jerseys, and I go frame them down the block from. There was a framing store on Westchester Avenue under the L.
Wow.
And every frame was like it was expensive. It was like $150. And I paid for every one of those frames myself. I wanted to leave a legacy on the walls of all the kids that came and, put their jerseys up. And that was just an idea I came up with. And actually, I think I probably stole it from Christ the King. I think he had 2 of them up. And I said,
right. They have a few up in the glass, but guys,
back in the day, I think they had 1 or 2 up, and I said, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that for every kid that goes D1. And my other thing was I wanted to do the same thing for all the kids. When you talk about the kids go D1, there was a lot of kids that went D2 too, because I wanted to honor them too. But then that's when I left and all that, and things changed. So
yeah. Man, they was talking about Scientific Map, brother, and Kenny Satterfield, Coach DeCesare, talk about Charles Matthews. He was a beast at St. Rita's.
Kenny Satterfield, man, he should have came to him, and Andre Barrett broke my heart, man. I tried to recruit them so hard to St. Raymond's, but they said we had too many players. And
wow.
And they were the start of of Rice. Lou DeMello got the job, and I kind of took Lou under my wing and helped him, talk to him, and we became great rivals, but we were great friends. You know, great friends. Lou DeMello was a great guy. You know, when Mo left and Lou took over. You know, and you know, Charles Matthews was just a great player. What a shame what happened to him. You know, he was, you know, 2 days before the draft at the Boston Celtics workout, and he was going to get drafted. You know, they predicted him to be like 25, 24 in the 20s, and he tore his ACL in the workout 2 days before the draft. You know, and tore his ACL, and it's been a tough climb back for him, but he's been so dedicated. You know, I tried to talk. I said I tried to talk him out. And said, Charles, get into coaching, man. You know, and you'd be a great coach. But you know, he's playing overseas now, and you know, he's still fighting and still believes he could play in the N.B.A. You know, and Charles was a great player, great, even better person, and a great family. I coached all three of his brothers. The whole family, 3 brothers: Jordan Matthews, Charles. Here's a great story: Jordan Matthews, Charles Matthews, and Dominique Matthews. So asked the mom, "Where'd you come up with those names?" She said, "Charles Barkley, Dominique Wilkins, and Jordan Michael Jordan."
Wow.
So how about that? Great family, great basketball family.
So you winning in New York City wasn't a fluke, because you went to Chicago and you won 7 championships out there.
Yeah, it's tougher to win a state championship out here in Chicago the way it's set up. But
what is it like out there?
Well, I was foolish at the time, because when I first came to St. Rita, the school, based on size, there's 4 classes: 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. We were 3A, and I'm coming from New York, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I want to play the best and be the best, right? So I petitioned. You could petition to go up 3A to 4A, and if you do it, you have to do it for 2 years. And I said, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Let's do that. You know, so if we stayed 3A, we would have won 2 state championships, because I went up to 4A, and we did very, very well. You know, I had a great team. I had 4 or 5 Division I players at St. Rita, and one year we're going up against Simeon, and they have 4 or 5 Division I players, except they got a lottery pick. They got
Derek Rose,
Parker.
Parker. Oh yes, Jamari Parker.
Yeah, and then the next year I got everybody back, and now in the sectional finals we're playing Whitney Young, and they got 5 Division I players, and I got 5 Division I players, and we lose by a few points, except they got another lottery pick in Okafor. So you know, both those years, if we stayed 3A, and that was the creation of Morgan Park. Morgan Park just started to come on the rise, and they won those 2 state championships. And you know, we would have definitely won the 2 state championships if we stayed 3A. But me being from New York, I was like, well, I want to be at the highest level, because that's what I was at. You know, now in today's, it doesn't matter, right? 3A in Chicago in the Catholic League, 3A was as good as 4A for the last 3 years. Right?
Wow.
So I mean, it's just, you know, so there's no like Archdiocese championships and playoffs. As soon as your season's over, boom, you're going right into the state tournament. You got to play 2 regional games, and then if you win that, you got to play 2 sectional games. If you win that, then you got to play a super sectional to get downstate to play in the state championship. So it's like 2, 4, 6, 7 games to get down there. You know,
wow.
Where in New York, you get into the Archdiocese playoffs, you could lose and still get into the
the city championship. Yeah,
championship bracket.
Yeah.
You know, you're just playing for seeding. There's no seeding. You seed, but you're seeding going right into the state tournament.
And they got rid of the federation. So at the end of the year, the city championship for the Catholic School League, play the city championship for the PSCL, season over.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't really have a problem with that. You know, I thought that, you know, if you got the Catholic League winner playing the public school winner, and you did that at St. John's, or you did that in the Garden, you know, I would have signed up for that back in the day. You know, then go downstate, and you know, we're going, you know, driving. So one year we drove 4 hours wherever we were going. I forget.
The Glen Falls.
Glen Falls, right? To get out of the car to play Kennedy, who was 5 minutes from St. Raymond's.
So listen to this. In '86, we go up to Glen Falls. We play Malloy 7:30, 8 o'clock Friday. We beat them in overtime. Then we play Our Savior Lutheran again, 7:30, 8 o'clock, double overtime.
I remember that.
And then we got to play Binghamton 12:30 in the afternoon, right? Because last year they just lost to All Hallows, and it was just like our clocks was totally off. So
yeah, so '91 when we won our first city championship, like that was like the biggest thing that could happen to St. Raymond's, and like I could have ended the season right there, right? And then now you're preparing to go downstate or upstate or whatever they call it there. Upstate,
upstate, yeah.
And here they call it downstate, but going upstate, and I'm like, we gotta go play again, and we're playing. Our first game we're playing Mount Vernon, right? That was the Mount Vernon team that would, that was really, really good. And everybody kind of was Orlando Antigua. I still, tell him this all the time. He scored like 4 points. He was like, 2 for 30 in the game. And the next night he plays in Portchester in an AAU event and has 45 points for the Gauchos. But we go upstate and we lose to Mount Vernon, where it just seems like it didn't mean anything, but then it was an empty feeling that you didn't win the state championship. But I'm glad now that St. Raymond's could never win another state championship because there really isn't one. So Federation,
no, and when you ask
won the last one,
when you ask the guys, what means more, city or state, everyone says city.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. The city championship was way more important than the state championship back then. And it was pretty new, too, back then, right? The Federation was kind of new. And
Federation started in 1979.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's the same thing kind of here. State championship is big, too. But, I take the Catholic win playing the public city school champion, play it at United Center for a state championship. I take that any day of the week.
Yeah. I just, I wish they move it out of LIU and get it to a bigger venue. But hey, anyway, stepping that kind of on the last couple of years anyway. So now I think this year is going to be the Catholic school is going to be a lot more balanced this year. It's going to be some very good games. And, I'm looking forward to it. Public school as well. Yeah. Good.
That's good. But, New York's always been the mecca of basketball. Yeah. And, things shift year for years, a couple of, here's just sometimes Chicago's better. New York's better. LA's better. California, but, again, probably the best Catholic leagues in the country have always been, New York, Chicago, Philly, DC, those have been the tops in different time periods.
And everybody else is just catching up.
Yeah. And I'm fortunate enough and honored to, been able to coach in 2 of them, in New York and Chicago.
Yes. Let me see. St. Rita just had a draft pick, Morez Johnson.
Yes, St. Rita, Morez Johnson was drafted by his coach at Michigan and was drafted by the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah. So, Coach, if you had one thing to change about your basketball journey, what would it be and why?
Wow, that's a good one. I usually get who's your top 5 players you coach at St. Raymond's.
I never ask coaches that. I just, but we do have a top 5, though.
I never, I've never looked back at anything that I've done. I'm always about now and how I could get better tomorrow. And I got a great family. I got a great wife. I got great kids. My journey has been terrific. I would never look back and say, why did I do that? And why did I do that? And, I'm glad I had the opportunity to go to college. That was eye-awakening. I had a dream to be a Division I head coach, interviewed for a couple of jobs and, didn't get them. And, like anything, everything happens for a reason. Right. So, I'm just happy that if I can, touch one kid every year and make a difference in his life, then, my life has been golden.
Well, not a lot of high school coaches get to move on to the college level, so you did a great thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. All right, so let's get into our top 5. Let's have some fun. Ready?
Go ahead.
All right.
Top 5.
Yes. Okay. Top 5 players you coached against.
Kenny Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Malik Sealy. Just while I was in New York or anywhere?
Anywhere.
Jason Tatum. That was a classic. Jason Tatum and Charles Matthews going out of it. Battle of battle. That's 3, right? Jamal Mashburn. He was a great high school player. Tremendous. I mean, he put that Cardinal Hayes team on his back and won a city championship, himself. And ironically, when I went down to Gulliver Prep, he was on the board of directors of Gulliver Prep.
Wow.
His kid went to one of his kids went to Gulliver Prep for a couple of years before I got there. But it's such a small world. And I got one more, huh?
Yeah.
Did I say Stephon Marbury?
No.
Stephon Marbury.
Yes. It's
a pretty good 5.
It's a damn good 5. Damn good 5. Top 5 players in Catholic school history.
In the Catholic League.
Yes.
Well, you got to go back with Kenny Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamal Mashburn. That's 2.
Mm-hmm.
Felipe Lopez.
Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot Felipe too in that top 5. He's 6th then, I guess. Felipe Lopez. I'm going to say Terrence Rencher. I think Terrence Rencher was one of the most underrated players in the country. I got it. This is tough, but Ron Artest.
Definitely. Good one. Top 5 players in New York City history, according to Gary D.
Wow. I guess you got to put Jabbar, Lou Alcindor.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you got to go with Kenny Anderson. Kenny and Jamal Mashburn.
2 high school players, jerseys in the Hall of Fame. Kareem and Kenny.
Yeah.
Jamal Mashburn, that's 3.
Yeah. New York City. Malik Sealy.
Nice.
And then we're in the Catholic League, right?
No, this is just the top 5 players in New York City history, period.
Oh, yeah, Rod Strickland.
Wow, you go anyway. Nobody's had the same 5 ever.
No, I know that. Yeah, you could go. I mean, you could go to 20, top 20, and you still miss guys.
So that's what guys was like, yo, you doing an all-decade team, you should do 20 players. I was like, no, I like to do 10. So everybody on the social media can argue about who belongs on the list.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. All right. We set the tables, y'all do the dishes.
You're gonna get me in trouble now. I'm gonna get a lot of hate texts. So.
Yeah, people like
him,
Chris Mullins. Of course, this is the hardest part of the show. People always say, yo, Pooh, this is the hardest part of the show. This is the hardest part of the show. Okay, I know before we got out of here, one player I definitely want to talk about is my guy, Kareem Reed. Such a gentleman, such a staple in New York City history. And now what he's doing for the kids, he gets free clinics up in Harlem. You know, he was coaching at St. Ray's. Now he's the new coach for balling up in Harlem, New York versus New York this summer, the biggest tournament of the summer. So
is that kind of like a Golden Hoops return?
yes.
Great tournament.
Yes.
Can't duplicate it.
But they do it through the parks, right? You know, throughout East Boroughs. And, you know, we all know he was a great player. Did you know that he would, you know, wind up coaching and doing what he's doing right now?
Yeah, I didn't, you know, Kareem Reed and Eric Harris formed the best backcourt that I ever had. They were, you know, just great complement of each other. I mean, Eric was more of the defensive guy, and, you know, Kareem was more of the both of them tough as nails. You know, I wouldn't want to take a charge on Kareem Reed, because if you take a charge on Kareem, when he gets up, he's stepping on your chest, or while he's on the floor, he might be spitting in your face, or, you know, he might be doing something.
You're kind of playing, Gary. You're kind of playing, coach.
Yeah, man. He. I mean, him and Eric Harris and Julius Hodge, man, they were three of the toughest dudes that I coached. I mean, they were. Julius was unbelievable.
Another coach.
Yeah. He's at the Lincoln College in Pennsylvania. Yeah. We had every year when we go to Final Four, we try to gather as many St. Raymond's guys, you know, to go to lunch. We go to a brunch, you know, during the Final Four, and, you know, we had one this year, and we had, you know, Julius was there, Terrence Rencher was there. We had about 8 or 9 guys there for lunch that were all St. Ray's grads, and it was great time.
Listen, I've interviewed a lot of coaches, read about a lot of coaches, played for a great coach. Sitting here talking to you, and all the players that you have that are now coaching on different levels, especially college basketball, is incredible. I don't think this will ever be done again. If we did a Gary DeCesare's tree, it would be crazy.
Yeah, that's, you know, hopefully, you know, that's because, you know, hopefully I had an influence on them, and when they played for me, and you know, one of the, you know, you talk about players and the best players, but there's a difference between a player and a high school player. One of the greatest high school players I ever coached was Darrell Reed. Darrell Reed was a phenomenal high school player.
No, he was
high school player.
I played against him.
Yeah, he was tough. He knew the game. He was so court savvy, coachable. He was one step ahead of everybody. He had great anticipation. He was, and when him and Arnold Bernard formed that backcourt at Southwest Missouri State together, man, that was a hell of a backcourt.
They played with each other on the Gauchos.
Yeah, and they played.
I remember.
Yeah, they played together in the Gauchos. And
Arnold
Bernard on that Our Savior team that beat you?
No, we beat them.
No, you beat them, but that was that state tournament.
Yes, he was on that team.
Yeah,
and that Gaucho team had Lloyd Daniels was on that team. Chris Brooks was on that team. It was ridiculous, like the amount of talent.
Just listen to some of the guys you're naming that we didn't name in those top lists.
yeah, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Man, Coach, it was a pleasure talking to you. Man, a wealth of knowledge.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time and having me on, and it's just, you know, great to, you know, talk. And, you know, one of my former players, Alan Ray's sister's doing a book on and it's more of a teaching book for young coaches. You know, of not, you know, we're in the middle of it now, but you know, it's what I want to try to do is give knowledge to young coaches today. And, you know, because a lot of them get in it for the wrong reason, right? They're getting in it because they think they're going to make money. And, you know, you try to hire assistant coaches, and first question they ask is how much I get paid. I never even asked how much I was getting paid when, you know, I was hired at St. Raymond's. You know, I lost money when I was coaching. you spend more money than your coach. You get for a stipend. So, or they're all trying to find the next LeBron or the next Kobe Bryant. And there's not many people getting into it anymore to make a difference in kids' lives, as I think I've done and Coach Hartstein's done. And, you go on like as Coach Jack Current did and Tommy Murray and all those guys and John Kerry, back in the day. And you go on and on and on and on. And of course, we cannot forget the great Ron Niclario, who's, I think, counting by twos.
So hold on. Ring the alarm. Okay. I'm glad you opened up that bag because,
I love Ronnie, man. He's great.
Listen, but Coach,
he's got so much energy, man. That guy he's the best.
Okay. So I've had people contact me and talk about this a lot, right? And Ron's my guy, right? Ron's my guy. He knows I love him. But yes, I think he says he's going to coach till he gets to 1,000 wins.
I think he thinks he got 1,000 3 years ago.
Okay, it doesn't make sense that he got all those wins in 50 years.
Well, I don't know. Let's do the math. If you're 50 years and you get 20 wins a year, what is that? What's 50 times 20?
Yeah, I get you. Hold on. Isn't that? Hold on. My math is my brain is fried right now.
Yeah, me too. I'm getting my calculator out. Hold
on.
50 times 20 wins. That's
1,000.
So yeah. That's even if you coach, and that means you had to win 20 games every year. I just went over. So I'm 30 years in high school. I took 7 years off to coach college, and I just went over 600 this year. So, and I know I didn't win 20 games every year. Some years I won 30, some years I won 10, 15,
So let me kind of explain to you, right? This would kind of make sense, okay? And he gets a lot of his wins in Queens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Queens schools, especially now, right, are Queens goods on the PSL side.
Right.
They don't win outside the borough, so you can kind of stack your wins just in that borough alone, And I think he's won 2 city championships. I don't think no state championship, if I'm correct. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know he won 1 in the Garden. I remember halftime he changed his outfit.
Yes. So I know he has. I think he has 2 city championship. But they announced him into the Basketball Hall of Fame, New York City Basketball Hall of Fame.
It's all good. All
and
good.
They honored him.
He's a good guy. He's good for kids, and he does a good job.
Yeah. Everybody honored him except the PSL.
Yeah. He's been a good friend over the years. I stay in touch with him. He's very entertaining. I used to scrimmage him every year just to maybe he's counting those scrimmages, but he I used to scrimmage him every year because it was so entertaining. We used to. They had a rule back then when you could play 8 scrimmages. Like you can't even do that here in Illinois. I tried to bring it. Why don't we play 3 or 4 scrimmages before the season starts? So
right,
we could teach our kids, and we play by quarters. Right, we erase the score every quarter. But we play 6 scrimmages. Ron would be on one end, first one quarter. He'd be on my bench the next quarter. He'd be in that end zone the next quarter. He's all over the gym. And I just sit there and look at him, man. This guy is so funny. I mean,
I know I'm gonna get a call. Either tonight or tomorrow.
I am too, but that's all right.
First of all, I'm just like taken back. Like, woo, you're good. Well, listen. you know, you can always come back on anytime. We want to invite you back on, especially when the book comes out. And I think you have something there where you can take the book around the country and give clinics to coaches. I think it'll be an awesome thing, especially to move the book and sell it. You need me to promote it on my social media. I definitely will do that. Don't worry about that. You know,
I
so
appreciate that. Yeah. And that's another thing you just mentioned, clinics. I used to go to clinics all the time. I still do. It's amazing how coaches don't go to clinics anymore, man.
the ego.
There's always something you could learn. Always. I mean, or even if you just go, you get a coach like a Bob Huggins who'll just stand up there and tell stories. It's the greatest thing. I mean, I could go to a clinic and listen to Ron Clario tell stories. I mean, you know, it's basketball.
Great storyteller. Great.
The love of basketball. You know, you got to get better at your craft every day.
Well, listen, I would like to give a shout out to Coach Pat Massaroni, because with all the success that he's had in the last couple of years, he still will text and ask, how does the team look? What do you think? Right? You know, and you get guys who aren't on his level, haven't won as many games, you know, they feel like they don't need to even tap in to even ask, even though we're at all the games.
Yeah, I don't know, Pat. You know, we've talked a few times.
Great guy.
I heard a lot of great things about him, but, you know, he should send me some, you know, shoes or something for, you know, leaving New York, because if I didn't leave, he wouldn't be winning.
Shots fired! Hey, Coach, you sure you wasn't a rapper in the prior life? Because you are sitting out the hits, bang, bang, bang. Wow. Hey, listen, they've been able to do a great job building. He's been able to build that school up into a powerhouse. Does a great job on the fundraising, and you know he's up in Westchester. It's a lot of money up there. So
yep, absolutely,
you know, being able to get the kids prepared. But I think this year, you know, he'll have his work cut out for him, because there's some other talented teams, and we'll see. Yeah,
and you know, going back to your thing about, you know, promoting kids, one of the guys that we really forgot to talk about and mention, and he was great for high school kids, was Mike Quick. You know, at MSG.
Yes.
You know, Mike was a great guy, and you know, and he did a hell of a job promoting kids. You know, tremendous, great job.
Yeah, I had him on the show, and you know, he's like, you know, I pass you the mantle because of the job you're doing, and it felt good knowing that, you know, I used to watch him, and you know, to cover the games and to be doing something that he loves to do. Also, you know, I'm on the N.B.A Top 100 Camp Committee. So if you got any kids in Chicago that I need to know about, especially on your team that I need to know about, just text me. This way they're on my radar, and I can kind of take a look at them and see where they at. You know, I think
that's great. We need more guys like you out there promoting kids. You know, like you said, that's, you know, a lot, not, and you know, it's funny because a lot of the guys that would do, you know, that do it now probably never dribbled or shot a ball in their lives. You know, like you're a player. You played. You know the game. You know, some of these guys. You know, anybody could, you know, start ranking kids on a platform, and they don't know that the ball's round. You know, so and again, I'm not afraid to say it. You know, because
I see it. I see the ESPNs do it. I see, you know, and they got the biggest, you know, platform for that. I see other platforms do it, and it's just like, okay, but I need to formulate my own thoughts on what I think kids should do and be. And again, this is a lot of these guys have been doing it for a longer period of time. I'm just making my way, and
that's why I had the most respect for Tom Konchowski. You know, the glider. He was never evaluated a kid or put him in writing unless he saw him not once, not twice, but 3 or 4 times. You know, and you know, the glider was, you know, great for kids too, and you know, it just, you know, there's not a lot of guys out there like him anymore, and you know, hopefully you're the next glider, or you are the glider. You know,
Well, thank you, and I take pride in that because I will put out my list on top guys in the city, and everybody mentioned these other guys, and I go, I didn't see him play, right? Or I put out my all city list, and I go, I only saw him play once, and he didn't play well, right? So unless I see you play a couple of times, and I take pride in that, unless I see you play a couple of times in person, do not send me video, because everybody wants to see me video and be like, did you see what he did in the video? I said, no.
yeah, you got
And
the video now where a kid going up for a dunk and it stops right there, but he missed the dunk, right? But you don't see that. You
right,
just see him
right,
above the rim, like
right.
I always say if there's a college coach out there that takes a kid on a video, he should be fired. Because how do you take kids on videos and not being able to see them play?
This happened. This happened in my playing career at Fairleigh Dickinson.
Wow.
I'll be honest. Player named Rodney Caldwell. Love you, Rodney. They had one more scholarship left, and they was, rushing to give it away. And he sent them a whole bunch of videotapes, and they gave him a scholarship.
It's crazy.
Oh, well, they pissed at Rodney. They did everything to try to break that guy, get him to quit. They even took half the scholarship. He did not quit. He stayed, whether he got playing time or not. He took that half of scholarship, made it work, and graduated with a degree because he didn't want, he wasn't going to let them break him. But I wasn't mad at Rodney. I said, yo, you did what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, if you get it, then great. But again, just think about the glider going to see all these high school kids and never drove a car. Never, I gave him countless rides home to Queens, from places. The guy took public transportation everywhere, and he saw more high school games than probably anybody.
By the way, I don't drive either.
You don't? Oh, that's awesome. See, I just said you're the new glider.
And again, it wasn't something that I was shooting for. It was a void, and I just filled that void because I wanted to help kids. I knew what it's like to be in a newspaper. I know what it's like to be on television. I knew what was like, and these kids don't have an idea. They just live off video clips and think that's the whole world, and it's more to that. A kid see his name in a write-up or evaluation, what kind of player he is, it means something. And now me going to these camps, like the Captain School, they do a great team camp. And I was able to make connections there with a lot of college coaches. And, being down the top 100 camp, you start to see like these coaches and N.B.A. scouts is gravitating towards you and picking your brain about who you think is good.
Yeah.
And then once I tell them, and then they watch the kid and they go, man, you were right. It kind of gets infectious. So, and you want to make sure that you're right on par, and, you're not just saying it just for clout. And I don't do anything for clout.
Yeah, you need to get like 4 or 5 guys, Queens, Brooklyn guys that now head coaches out and put them all on together and like we said, Michael Boynton is from Brooklyn. You got the kid from Brooklyn that's at not FDU, not St. Peter's. What's the other school in Jersey?
Seton Hall.
No, that's Shaheen, but the other school where Danny Hurley came from. Not St. Peter's. He's the head coach of Wagner.
Oh yeah. I know. Yeah, McMillan.
He's a Brooklyn kid, right?
Yes.
The head coach.
Yeah.
Him. Shaheen is another one. Brooklyn, Queens kid.
Right.
He another one that broke my heart. He went to New Jersey instead of staying in New York.
I know. He broke all of our hearts.
Yeah, and so just think about that pride of kids from Bronx, Manhattan, Queens, who are head coaches right now in college. Julius is another one. He's college coach. We got a great thing. A lot of these kids, and look at their past and how they made it to where they were, right? Where they were and where they are now. Orlando is one of the top assistant coaches in the country. He could be a head coach anywhere he wants. Yeah. But he loves Illinois and he loves his job. Those guys, the Antiguas didn't have the best coming up when they were, at St. Raymond's. But they all made it.
Yeah.
They all made it. It'd be a hell of a podcast getting all them on together.
Oh man, that's Lavelle Sanders. Wow. Wow. Listen, that's a great idea. This is the reason why, my YouTube channel is called NYC Basketball History, right?
Or do a roundtable with them. That'd be great.
Oh, yes, no doubt. That is something I'm definitely going to do. We bring them all in when we get these guys in town. Those who can't make it, we could do another series online. But what I do is I put the high school games and the high school interviews and the other podcasts on the channel. So hopefully these kids who are looking for their games bump into your interview, bump into a Ross Strickland, bump into a Stephon Marbury, bump into a Terrence Rencher story and hear their stories so they can understand, I have an idea how things work.
Yeah.
And things don't really change that much. They just kind of repeat itself.
Yeah. Great idea. Great. That's good. That's
Listen, I don't want to keep you too long. We already been on here almost 2 hours. Hey, Coach.
We go 2 hours.
Listen, I appreciate you so much. And look, this is not going to be the last time I bring you on. This is not going to be the last time I bring you on. You're such a wealth of knowledge, and you're a straight shooter. Nothing I like more than a straight shooter.
Oh, I appreciate that.
With all due respect, for sure. Respectfully, you do it in a nice way. But you tell it out how it is. Like everybody always said about you. So I was walking around today because they had a little memorial celebration for the young man who passed away. And I was like, yo, I got to get out here. I got Gary D. He was like, you got Gary DeCesare on tonight? What? You? Everybody who I told, I was like, yo, it's like, you leaving? I was like, yeah, I got to leave. I got a show. And so much respect out in these streets, bro. All the way in Brooklyn. They know who you are and what you represent. So,
well, I appreciate that. And, I'm glad I touched a lot of people.
Oh, you did. You touched me tonight, Coach. Appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And we'll be in contact. Remember, keep me abreast of those players out in Chicago, so I can have a head start on these guys out here.
I will. Thanks, Pooh. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Look at that. Man. Wasn't he amazing? There's nothing like hearing about someone and then watch him be that person in real life. If we would do Gary DeCesare's tree, it would be unlike any high school coach ever in New York City. Now, you could talk, N.B.A. players and players. No, what he did, he helped change the lives of kids who went on to change the lives of other kids, and goes on and on and on. That's what it's about. Your time on earth is short. It's what you do with your time when you're here and how many people do you affect. I know I mentioned that young man earlier, Keanu Rochford. You should see all the people he affected and touched. Now, bring in Gary D, and he's done it the same way, but on a different level. We're never going to have another Gary DeCesare in New York City. We want to have another Gary D, but quite honestly, I think he's one of one. Appreciate having him on the show. Coach, you made my night, made my day. This is a great show. For those of you out there, keep helping kids. You never know how much of an impact you have on them. Don't give up on your kids. He had to go get Book Washington out the streets and say, come on, like you need to be focused on here, right here. And now Book is still changing lives. Don't give up on the kids. Keep your dreams alive. So hopefully you could be the next Gary D. All right, I'm about to get out of here. I'm your host, Glenn Poole Harding, and you've been watching Basketball Heads Live, the official home for New York City basketball. And as we always say around this time, peace.
Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Yes. You have just stepped out into the world of chaos. Where everybody goes hard. Come on. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Or go home. Never back down. You gotta hold your own. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. East Coast. Go hard. West Coast. Go hard. Midwest. Go hard. 30-30. Hurry up, everybody. Get online. Buy your tickets, cause the game about to start.